entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Well, you must have been entertained yesterday. I know I was for a full 2 hours. Fresh and Fit podcast on Tim Pool was very interesting. Today, I have two very special guests with me. I have Troy Francis of Rule Zero fame, and I have the one, the only, James Tusk. We're talking about game today. Is game still relevant in 2021? I think it is. Gentlemen, how are we doing today? Let me unmute you.
What intro?
What an intro. Yep, see, there you go. See, I go big on
Are we still echoing?
There we go. I got you. I got you now. Oh, nice. There we go. That's enough of that. I have not done a live stream on a Wednesday in quite some time, actually. I've been doing nothing but my short form videos, I guess, is what I'm calling them. They're actually not all that short.
Yeah.
But I am going to be doing a cameo appearance in a movie on this weekend. So I will have a recorded show on Sunday, and this is going to be my live show today. So, and I apologize. I thought yesterday we were going to be able to do it at 1:00 yesterday, but I guess we had a little bit of a mix up. But you know what? It works better now because this is my Wednesday show as it is. So works good. Absolutely. I have Troy and I have my good friend James Tusk here. How are you doing, man? I have not had you on this show ever, and I feel kind of bad about that because next to Troy and next to like maybe Tom Torero or somebody, whenever somebody says like, Rollo, who's the best people to learn game from? Where's a book that I can learn it from? And I'm like, let's see. Let me think. And my brain kind of goes back to like Mystery Method, or it goes back to like maybe even Nick Krauser or Tom Torero. But even like those guys are like, they're not really in practice anymore. At the very least, they're not in practice anymore. And so I always refer them to your books, Troy, or else I tell them to go look up one James Tusk. So you guys are still in it. You guys are still practicing. You guys are still, what would you call yourselves? Would you call yourselves PUAs, or would you call yourself dating coaches? What's the terminology now?
Yeah. I mean, I think times have moved on. I think that the days of, Mystery smashing it on VH1, getting paid his big bucks to do that have kind of moved on. I think the connotations of being a pickup artist are kind of cheesy now. Yeah. And I think myself and Troy are kind of on the same page, whereby we look at it as a 21st century man. If you can't speak to the opposite sex sober, that's something you need to work on, right? So it's more about kind of building that emotional and social intelligence and kind of having that social freedom with intent. And I think that's kind of, I guess if you had to push me for a label, I'd say dating coach. But really the way we look at it is pretty holistic. We're looking at all those kind of factors that make up sexual market value. So not just the social skills, which is one element, but the fitness, the fashion, the finances, lifestyle design, travel, learning languages, learning how to fight, all these kind of elements that make up basically your boss performance as your hero's journey.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up because I have had this discussion not only with the guys on Rule Zero, certainly John from Modern Life Dating, but a lot of other guys right now. Tomorrow, by the way, I will be doing a show. I'm not really the host, but I'm going to be the guy who's sort of directing traffic, I guess. Between myself, Aaron Clary, Rich Cooper, and George Gammon is going to be on that show. And we're trying to get Ken McElroy. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it or not, but we're going to be talking about like red pill economics. And I'm glad you brought that up, James, because one of the things that I see happening right now, or it's like sort of a coalescing, I guess, is something that actually I think John from Modern Life Dating made me aware of. It's like most guys want three things. They want to make muscle, make money, and learn game, and learn how to. I mean, those are the three elements I think that most guys are really into. Or they're deficient in some way, right? So like when I've talked about the sort of the trifecta in the past, it's always been looks, money, and game. And if you have two, have at least two of those. And if you can only have one, have game, right? I mean, because that is the social intelligence that's needed to actually, even consider the other two in the first place. So I think really right now, certainly for the last like two generations, the learn game aspect is probably the most difficult because people just simply are either averse to it, or it's too uncomfortable to them, or it's something where they think that they don't need to apply themselves as much as they do when it comes to money, or it comes to muscles, or whatever else. Muscles being a sort of a fill-in for looks and physique and everything, which are also important. So I'm glad you brought that up, James, because like one of the things we're talking about is sort of putting together the complete package, whether that's in a conference, or that's in a program, or that's in a book, or that's in bringing sort of like the money sphere together with the physical, like the fitness sphere together with the game sphere. And I think that going forward into certainly the next decade, I think that the people who have those three things sort of accounted for, or at least are a part of sort of a group that's coalescing about those three things, I think those guys are, first of all, they're going to be the most successful. And then second of all, that's what guys really need to have that sort of more well-rounded package right now.
Yeah, I think you need all of them, really. I'm sure, well, James can speak obviously for himself on this, but I think that we're in agreement that, you kind of need everything. You need everything at the same time. So if you look at Rule Zero, you've got Rich Cooper, who's always sort of don't chase women, chase excellence, do the work, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the sort of formally you would have the game guys who are saying, no, don't worry about that. Just chase skirt and, just have a great time. And that, that stuff will take care of itself. And it was always two opposing camps. I think now everyone recognizes that you need the whole package. You really, really need the whole package. And even to the point of looks, and I know we've had arguments in the past with some of the guys who are very much on the looks, money, status camp, side of things. And there's that sort of, battle that goes on in the background with all of that. But we've done a couple of shows on this week, and we've been saying, absolutely, you need to max out your looks. You certainly need to max out your money and your status, but you also need the social skills as well, which is where game comes in. So you today, even more than ever, you need the whole package. You can't get away any longer with letting it go in any one particular area of those.
Yeah, I tend to. I when I was just out at George Gammon's Rebel Capitalist conference in Miami, it kind of hit me like there's a lot of crossover between his and we're going to talk about this tomorrow on tomorrow's show. But and by the way, that will be on Rich Cooper's channel, not on my channel. But there's a lot of crossover between that sort of economic sphere with the red pill sphere. You guys, well, certainly you, Troy, that I've been working, but talking with Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. And he is very much a red pill guy, which really surprised me. And when I was at the conference, I was just shocked at how many guys were really like there was a crossover. Like, oh, I went to see you in 2018. I watch all your shows. I have all your books. Blah blah blah. Sign my book, kind of thing. And that's really why George Gammon brought me out there, was just to sort of just to walk around the lobby and mingle. I wasn't even speaking at the event. I was just there to sort of be somebody else along for the ride kind of thing. And I will probably be speaking in the future at future events, but it was eye-opening that there is guys who tend to, and maybe this is you guys' experience, because I don't know, James, I'm going to let you have the floor here in just a second, because I want people to sort of, like, my audience might not be familiar with you, but so I want you to sort of introduce yourself a little bit here. But what I see right now is, in those three things, looks, money, and game. If you focus on one, you tend to be deficient in the other two, or if you focus on two, you tend to be more deficient in one. Or some guys will try to sort of make up for the fact that they don't have game by really grossing out in money or really grossing out in their appearance, way like looks maxers, right? Looks maxers think that all it's just looks, man. All you gotta do is just look good, and it doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth as long as you look good. She'll want to get with you, kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. And so there's sort of like this gross over emphasis, I think, on certain aspects of those three. But then when you get into that, when if that's all you're about, then you become really kind of deficient in others. So, James, I wanted to give you a chance to sort of like introduce yourself and let everybody know like what you've been. I know what you've been doing, but like let everybody know like who you are and what you've been doing for the last, 10, 12 years now.
Yeah, it's I kind of had a kind of flashback. Someone asked me today how long I've been involved in this stuff, and it's actually been since 2012. I first did a boot camp with. You know the guy Tom Torero and those guys who ran daygame.com. Just to answer someone's question about why two English, one here, one England are playing, I have got a subtle eye on the football in front of me on mute, so you might see me just jump off and like rip my shirt off, and terrible tattoos are going to come out.
I've got it on under the screen, guys.
Yeah, but no, I was the stereotypical good-looking guy at uni who basically was just hooking up with girls who were way below, I guess what I expected to be getting, because I saw it as, I saw myself as an attractive guy, albeit self-esteem wasn't quite there, but why aren't I getting these results? Because I assume girls saw it in the same way, where it's all about looks, right? Which kind of nullifies any of this kind of black pill nonsense that it's all about looks, because it's not. Because I was that good-looking guy who's tall. I'm just under 6'1", right? So 184, 185 centimeters, and I wasn't getting any action, right? Because I was lacking social intelligence, lacking confidence, learned self-esteem, didn't really have my shit together in other areas. So I got into daygame.com, did a boot camp with them because I came out of uni. I was like, I've got to do something about this. Growing up in the UK, there's a big pub culture. So you go to the pub from 15s, and I went to a private school, which in the UK is like, just boys. So no exposure to the opposite sex, grew up with three brothers, basically hadn't spoken to women, right? So super awkward around them. So I was like, fuck this, came out of uni and saw the guys at daygame.com and did a boot camp with them and kind of never looked back really. And so kind of getting requests to help guys out, sort of working for a couple of companies on the side, then hit 30. I'm 34 now and just decided, right, I'm going to do my own thing. So just started the YouTube channel and started traveling and basically just going, traveling's always been a passion. So it was brilliant just to be on the road, kind of practicing this stuff, helping guys out. But yeah, I guess my understanding of it's morphed as well, because when I got into this, it was very much the first 2 years, rack up the numbers, validate my ego. And as you develop with time and age, you realize actually the ideal scenario is maybe see a couple of hot girls on repeat, on rotation. So you've got that emotional connection as well as obviously, kind of the chase and, the biological side of it as well. But your priorities kind of change. And a lot of the guys I work with now, it's not about being a cheesy pickup guy. It's about kind of seeing me on YouTube being like, I want to be able to do that. I want to get off a plane in Brazil, in Carnival and be able to speak to some hot girls. I want to land in Serbia and walk down the high street and go on a date with an absolute stunner. The options there now are limitless to do that, because we live in the most rich and abundant time and the time that's you're most free and able to do anything you want. COVID's forced everyone, even big corporation workers, to be able to say, actually, I can go wherever I want. So I think now, as we come into the summer of 2021 in Europe, there's less excuse than ever to really take control of what you want in life from the dating perspective and do something about it. And as Troy said before, every generation gets better than the last. It doesn't cut it being this cheesy pickup guy now with no inherent value. And so you had to create all these lines and routines basically to fake value. Now you've actually got to be the full package. So that means working on your finances, fitness, fashion, looks, games, social intelligence. It's all got to be there. We live in a quick fix, instant gratification culture. You're competing, even when you cold approach, which I think day game cold approach is the most effective way to meet women, time and cost effective way. We're still competing against all these rich dudes in Dubai who are like sending messages to these Ukrainians on Instagram, being like, "Oh, baby, I'll fly you out. You can suck off a camel for 100 grand." And we're competing against this. Like, these are hard times. I'm not ashamed. These are hard times.
Troy, how long have you been in like doing what you've been doing? Like, I hate to say dating coach, pickup artist, whatever. Yeah. Like, I mean, you're I know you well enough, but like, how long have you been doing this?
Well, I got into it in about 2004, 2005, when the game came out, like many other people. I think James actually is one of the few people who didn't even get through the book, the game. But I did read the game. I had been going through a little bit of a dry spell at that point because I just relocated to London. So my social circle here wasn't as big as it is now. And I was looking for a way out of that. The game came out. I read that. And off the back of that, I ended up joining a forum in London called the LSS, London Seduction Society, which sounds awfully creepy now, but it was a thing at the time. Doesn't exist anymore. There was a load of guys on that who went on to gain some prominence in this area. So people like Tom Torero, Nick Krauser, Adam Lyons was on there, various other people. And I joined that, and I met guys through that and became friends with them, and we would go out and learn these new techniques and ideas and try different things, and it was great, you know. And I then that started my sort of journey onto it. I had various girlfriends and things like that, and moved away from it at certain points, but really since the early 2000s, and then I started to write for Return of Kings in around 2014. That was the online magazine that Rouge V published before. Yeah. So I started to write for that, and I wrote a weekly article about dating, basically about, you know, my misadventures or adventures in the dating scene. You know, I went and spoke to this girl, I got rejected, I got accepted, this amazing thing happened, whatever it was, shared that knowledge with the readers, and people liked those articles. And so then I sort of took it into a professional sphere, if you like, but I was actually doing it for quite some time before that.
I think like a game in 2005, like I'm looking at the chat here and stuff, and you were talking about like the game, the actual book. I have kind of a history with that as well, because I remember when that first came out, and I knew when it was coming out because I was already following like alt-fast seduction back then. And I was watching Mystery Method, as far as like I don't even really want to call them. They weren't even really. I guess they called them user forums back then, because we went from forums to blogs to social media to YouTube to doing like this kind of stuff right here. So there's been sort of an evolution of how I guess the study, for lack of a better term, the study of intersexual dynamics has progressed. So my first question is this. Well, so as far as the game is concerned, when that came out, I was like, and I think I was like a lot of other people too, like when the game finally came out, and it's like, oh, Neil Strauss wrote this, all right, you know, because like Neil Strauss was like he was like writing for Rolling Stone or something at the time. And people, oh, holy crap, this guy's great, you know. And so I was reading it, and I got into it, and I thought it was really good, but it wasn't the book I wanted. It was like an entertaining book. It was like a story book. I mean, it has like illustrations in it, and it's like a very well presented book. I mean, it looks like the Bible, and it has the little ribbon for the, you know, for the bookmark and everything else. That's part. I got it right up there in the bookcase right now. But it wasn't the book I wanted. It was entertaining read, and it was fun to read about Courtney Love and, you know, Tom Cruise and all that other stuff that was going, you know, the crazy shit that was going on back then. But it just wasn't the detailed like what to do, like why would this work? And I'm still kind of like, one of the reasons I wrote The Rational Male was because I wanted to read that book. I wanted to have sort of this assessment of not necessarily game, but sort of intersexual dynamics, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so like when people ask me like, where's the best place to learn game, I want to ask you guys this: is this something you think you can learn from a book, or do you have to have somebody like sort of be an instructor, or do you need to have somebody who's like kind of showing like, is it something you have to learn in a class, or is it something you have to learn in a book, or can it be both today in 2021?
Do you want to go first, Troy? What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are there's a lot of great material out there. There are great books on it. I mean, people are asking for examples of books. I mean, I personally really love Heartiste on Game. I think that's a great book. Book of Pook is another one people talk about. One that both me and James are really like is the PDFs by 60 Years of Challenge. So he's a sort of obscure internet guy, but the 60 Years of Challenge books or PDFs are fantastic. And there are various other resources as well. But in answer to the thing about can you learn it just from that, I don't think you can. I don't think you can learn it just from videos either. I think that while there is this huge wealth of stuff out there, and it's fantastic, you know, it's great. But I think ultimately, for a start, social skills, it's about boots on the ground, right? You know, you can't sit in a room and learn it in a vacuum. So that's the first thing. And secondly, you're going to need a bit of help in most cases. And even if people obviously come at this from different baselines. So some people come from a very, very low social acumen level, and other people come from a very high social acumen level. And they're going to have different, likely faster results if they come from the latter group. But either way, you're either going to need somebody there to sort of mentor you from the ground up, or you're likely going to need somebody to have a look at what you're doing and help you with little tweaks. And so I think in either case, ultimately it comes down to, you're either going to do it yourself and just through trial and error over a long time finally learn it, and it does take a long time when you try and do it yourself, or you're going to get somebody to help you out with it, which means coaching or at least some kind of mentorship program.
Mm-hmm. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Troy. I mean, social skills built that emotional intelligence. We can't be good at stuff in life that we don't do with frequency. So in order to increase essentially what this is, which is game is essentially, in my opinion, getting up to the same social and emotional intelligence level as a woman, right? Because inherently women are super switched on, men are super not switched on. We can only do this via frequency of interaction. So I guess the message that myself and Troy push now is, as well as getting out there and trying to hit, some situational approaching every day, some direct day game, start with a compliment. It's about being as sociable as you can the entire time with as many people as you can. Basic stuff that has a crossover with sales. I've spent a long time in the sales industry, active listening, being playful, being present in the moment. This stuff is also key. And so I think it's about seeing it as deep-seated identity change, becoming a more extroverted, socially, emotionally calibrated version of yourself. And that has to be done actually interacting with other human beings. In order to get anything you want in life, it's done via social skills, whether it's keys to the VIP club or whether it's getting someone to teach you a skill set. Everything is done through social skills, right? So it's a massive push, again, on forcing guys to not think of it as pickup, think of it as maxing out your EQ. And as a result of that, you're going to be living a boss dating life. And, just to kind of circle back to how this all began from my point of view is I came across your book, Rollo, the original Rational Male, many moons ago. And it was the perfect accompaniment for me giving to guys, because there's so many moments in there, these aha moments, especially the thing that I always used to have for myself as well, was this idea that as kind of 37, 38, that's when a man's sexual peak is. So many men come to me and they're like, James, man, I'm screwed. I'm 39. I'm like, no, you're not. Read The Rational Male, because this was one of the fundamental things. And they're like, oh my God, because this stuff's like buried deep in our psyche, but we needed you to write that book to tell us. And it's like, as soon as you read it, you're like, makes perfect sense. There's nothing to even question there. It's complete reality, but no one tells us this stuff. And that's that kind of Lost Boys generation. My dad didn't tell me he's a good guy, he's a great guy, but he didn't know to pass this information. Now, women inherently know. Women inherently are extremely red-pilled. Women inherently know everything in The Rational Male, but they're not going to sell you, because why would they? Like, there's no need to do it. So Rational Male was super, super important. I mean, this was years back. This was 3 or 4 years ago. I was like making guys buy copies of it, being like, look, he writes a lot of great content, but don't get bogged down in theory, because it is about taking action. Just read that first book and then go and take action. And that as a combination, I think, has been the most effective way I've kind of managed to help guys out.
That's funny. Is I had John from Modern Life Day, and John is just, I think he just turned 34 or 35. And he's he's never, now he has read, but up until that point, he has not read. He hadn't read my book. And I said, dude, just read my book and you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Like, when you get to be 35, 36, 37 years old, you're going to be at your sexual market value peak. You'll be hitting your stride. You'll be making the most, if you maximize your potential at that time, by that time in your life, you will have more of what women need more of at that particular time in your life than at any other time in your life, because it takes longer for a man to become than it does for a woman to become. And a lot of guys think that either they're like, when I say that, like, guys in their 20s want to say, oh man, no way, man. I'm yoked. I'm in much better shape than I will be when I'm in my 30s. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty pathetic, first of all. And then second of all, it's like, yeah, maybe, but there's a lot more checklists. There's a lot more qualifications that women have for you when it comes to, like, the things that they find attractive and the things that they find arousing at the same time. And so you will have more of those, assuming you maximize your potential. you will have more of those when you get to be about 36 and at any time in your life. And then when they get there, they go, holy shit, I can't believe he's right. You know, and now I'm hitting my stride. And now suddenly these, you know, I'm getting calls. You know, suddenly women are interested in me. And I'm like, yeah, now that you're at that age, now understand this. When you're there, you have to be very cautious and you have to protect yourself at that point, because that's when guys kind of lose the narrative, because all these women are now suddenly they're like the golden boy, and all these women want to get with them, and so they end up, you know, getting a girl accidentally pregnant or what. Like they try, you know, women try to lock them down because they are, you know, at least comparatively or subjectively speaking, they're high value men compared to what those women are, you know, where those women are at that particular time. So it's a fun time, but it's a precarious time too.
Yeah,
like
and it's hard to believe, isn't it? That
if you're not red pill aware at that time, you are in a very vulnerable position. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Like when you're in your late 20s, I remember being in my late 20s and I was coming up to 30 and you're just thinking, God, it's over. You know, it's over. To coin a phrase, it's you know, this is it. It's all downhill from here. And little do you realize, because this was before the Rational Male had come out and before I think even your blog was around, I had no knowledge of this. So I just thought, it's all going to go downhill. Little did I realize that, you know, you get past 30, you get into your 30s, it's the greatest time to be a guy. You know, it really, really is. And as long as you keep yourself in decent shape, decent kind of nick, that can go on for quite a long time. I do see quite a few people now, both from the sort of black pill side of things and some people who just, they want to take shots at, you know, Rollo or this kind of space. Now trying to do down the sort of guys get better as they age, you know, meme, like some more trad type guys saying, oh, you know, you need to get married because all this stuff about guys aging like fine wine, it's not really true. You know, actually guys I've seen quite a few guys, both on the trad side of things and the black pill, starting to say that. But I think that they're just trying to poison the well. Do you know what I mean? Because actually, really what we all know is actually, it's not saying you're going to be the oldest swinger in town, you know, doing day game approaches at the age of 60 sort of thing necessarily, although you can if you want. But the reality is, if you keep yourself in decent nick, guys do have a much longer runway than women do, I think. And I don't.
So here's my next question is this, and James brought this up too, and we can, you know, when we talk about things like the more extreme end of MGTOW, or we look at like black pill doomers, a nihilistic kind of side of things, do you guys think that one of the reasons why, especially for lack of a better term, like guys who are game enthusiasts, right? That maybe they're PUAs, maybe they're dating coaches, whatever it is that you guys do, right? Whatever terminology we're applying to it now, because I don't know what the hell to even call it at this stage. But what happens is these guys, frankly, the guys that I see in the black pill doomer side of things, they're selling books just like they just want to be like you guys. They just want to be the guys that are cool with their own little, you know, their own little sort of subculture. You know, they're selling the same thing. It's just like, just don't go out and do it. Here's women's nature, but don't go out and interact with them. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about is, do you think that it is the main problem with most guys today, the average guy today, is he just simply doesn't have the social skills? Like, are you guys teaching the social skills that these guys should have learned between like the time that they were in, like, you know, I don't know, junior high school all the way up to wherever they are now and sort of young adulthood? Do you think it's a deficiency in like an actually having, I guess, being stunted, or for lack of a better term, retarded, like clinically retarded, like having their maturation retarded in a social sense? Do you think that that's why there's so much conflict in, I guess, the manosphere, or is that what you guys are seeing when you guys are talking to other guys who want to come into this and want to learn? Is it a lack of social skills?
I think it's a lack of understanding that you can actually talk to people in the daytime sober. I don't like the terminology day game, night game, because I think it should just be, you see a girl, any scenario, you're able to do something about it. But a lot of guys we speak to, they can't believe it. And including me, when I first saw Torero charging around for daygame.com online, I couldn't believe that you can actually go up and speak to someone in like everyday life, giving them a compliment, and women are going to respond positive to that and actually give you kudos for having that fundamental attraction trigger, which is basically a demonstration of confidence, right? Raw fucking confidence. Because who the hell goes up to a smoking hot girl in a cafe in the middle of the daytime, gives her a compliment? You know, you guys have chemistry. She later tells her friends, which is you understanding game. You know, who does that unless they're extremely confident, extremely self-assured? So I just couldn't believe that this was a thing. And then I think that's a lack of realization it's possible is a big thing. But these new, me and Troy tend to work with, I guess you put out and you get back in what you put out. So I'm 34, Troy's a bit older. We tend to work with late 20s upwards guys, right? Who are kind of similar generation to us. But the younger generation now, they're screwed because from the age of 5, you're hooked on a smartphone. You're on these useless dating apps. Like the social skills in the next decade are just going to plummet. And I think actually, that the level of emotional and social intelligence is just going to go through the ground. It's a very worrying time, actually. And I can see why there's a rise in this black pill stuff, because people are not taking action and because they're realizing online dating doesn't work. But that's seemingly the only option anymore, especially now with this COVID nonsense as well. So I think there's a myriad of factors, but it's a worrying time if you're not aware of this stuff and you're kind of looking for somewhere to turn.
Troy, like what are the guys that, well, maybe for both of you, what's the demographic of guys that come to talk to you? Like are they guys that have a lot of money because they, decided they wanted to go to school and make some money and now they're trying to learn social skills? Remember, we're talking about learn game, make muscle, make money, right? Maybe they've made a lot of, do you see them grossing out in a particular way? I mean, what's the demographic of guys that you work with?
Well, broadly speaking, I mean, there's a whole mixture, but broadly speaking, it tends to be guys who are, professionals, probably a little bit older, so late 20s into their 30s, but, even, mid 30s to into their 40s. In my case, many of the guys that I work with. And yeah, they tend to be people who they've got that side of things sorted out. They've got their career is looking good. They're shaping up in other areas, but this is just something that they've been unable to quite get tied down, if you see what I mean. There's just something like missing in the social side of things and in the dating side of things. And with those guys, it's often a pleasure to work with those guys because there's nothing wrong. It's not that there's something markedly wrong in terms of their presentation or the way that they speak or their ability to interact with people, but it's just that it's not really attuned to the current dating market, and so they need a little bit of help and they need a little bit of accountability, actually, which is a big thing, just to help them to get over that particular thing, because it's a very specific challenge, isn't it? I mean, dating is a very different thing to building a career. I mean, we often say, build it sales and dating there are many similarities, but building a career or building a business, it's a different sort of skill set. The specific skills that you require in dating, particularly in 2021, they're quite sort of specialist, and if you haven't got a handle on it, you do need to get brought up to speed a little bit, and that's where we come in.
I think that one of the reasons why guys get so bent out of shape by quote unquote dating coaches or PUAs or whatever is because it's very uncomfortable for them to actually consider what James is just saying, go up and talk to a beautiful woman in a cafe somewhere. That is like speaking a foreign language to these guys, because it's first of all, it's very intimidating because women who are that, exceptionally beautiful seem very powerful. I think when a woman is say between the ages of about 21 and 24, somewhere around there, and she's on OnlyFans and she's got simps and all this other stuff, she's at the peak of power, right? Yes, that's women's primary agency is their sexuality, and in no other era a century really have we ever maximized and commercialized it to the degree that we have right now. Yeah, prostitution has been a thing for forever, but we've never made it easier for women to sort of become, let's quote unquote sex workers, right? To do all that. My next question for you guys is, you guys also know that I talk, I'm really for good friends with the guys on Fresh and Fit, and Myron and Fresh will be the first ones to tell you that although a lot of the game is still relevant from back in the mystery method days, that a lot of things have also changed. So one of the things that they talk about on there is that the number one, and I would agree, is that the number one dating app right now is really Instagram, and maximizing your appeal and maximizing your appearance and the perception, I think, of I guess for lack of a better term, fame or having some sort of I guess social gravitas as a result. Having really cool pictures on because it's all about perception, right? It's all about how you look and are you cool enough to hang out with. So This is a really good question for you guys, because both of you have been in sort of the game for a long time now. What do you think has changed, and what do you think what's not worth keeping and what's worth keeping along? Like what is still a fundamental part of game, and what is something that like needs to be updated contextually for, say, 2021?
That's a really interesting question. James, if you want to take that, but just before you do, I just wanted to say we did a couple of streams where we were talking about some of the looks, money, status issues earlier in the week, and I saw in the comments got a bunch of people saying, or some people saying, "Oh, look at these boomers! They're talking about it. They were calling us boomers because we don't understand the current dating market," and that's obviously nonsense, because we're out and about the whole time, and actually we're going to Russia tomorrow. Actually on a trip, and we're going to be obviously finding out firsthand what's happening over there, and then from there going on and traveling to some different into Moscow, and then traveling around some different regions in Russia and onto other countries. So we really are getting a very sort of global take on what's happening out there. And the other thing as well is that both of us, both myself and Mr. Tusk, obviously work with other students as well, and we work with younger students. So we are very, very attuned to what is happening out there, because like we did an event in London a couple of weeks ago where we're working with guys in their 20s or early 20s, and these guys are interacting with women also in their early 20s, and so we do have a very comprehensive insight, I think, into what's happening right now. But James, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, predominantly we've come from the background of being day game guys, right? So that ability to go up and speak to a girl in any situation that isn't a bar or club or online, and that is in itself a massive value add, because that it's kind of that lost art of confidence. Women respond now better than ever, from my experience of being back in London after COVID, and I'm also spending most of COVID basically doing the Great Escape in Brazil and Mexico, avoiding lockdown altogether. That kind of lost art of just social confidence, balls on the line. It's such an important skill set to learn. I've taught guys who are special forces who would prefer to be going in. They've said it. They prefer to be going into gunfire than going to speak to that hot girl sober, right? So it's a necessary skill to learn. It opens up so many other avenues, because when you can conquer that kind of fear, that is most men's greatest fear, speaking to that hot girl sober and putting it on the line. And when you can do that, there's so many other possibilities that open themselves up. I'd say, as an adaptability thing, even though I predominantly focus on cold approach and helping guys with that, you do need Instagram, I think, now. Every year, I get older, the younger generations are more Instagram kind of friendly. And there's jokes when I was out in Brazil with students, girls were coming up to the students, or the students were interacting with girls, and the students maybe a bit older, they don't have Instagram. And the girls were like making jokes in Portuguese, saying like to their friends, and we understood it because we speak Portuguese, being like, right, so this one's a serial killer, this one's married. But it's true, tongue in cheek aside, you have to adapt with the times, right? It's the Darwinistic thing. If it's not about what we think about it, it's about your ability to adapt, which is going to allow you to do it. Am I saying sign up to TikTok and we're going to see videos of me and John, me and Troy and Rollo dancing around doing belly dancing? No. But you do have to get basic stuff, like you have to have an Instagram account, you have to have some value on there. And you have to kind of have some willing. Facebook, I'm not convinced you need, but I do think you need Instagram, because what happens is women are great detectives, right? So they're going to get your number on WhatsApp or SMS, and they're going to search, and everything's very easily linked, and they're going to be able to find you online. If they can't find you on Instagram, they're going to kind of question, who is this dude? What's he about? What's he hiding? If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That really, really does happen, because I met a girl actually a while back in between lockdowns, in between the many lockdowns that we've had in London, and we met through daytime, and we exchanged numbers, and we were messaging, and we went out on a sort of very sad date, went back because nothing was open, and you had to walk around the park, and it was freezing cold and stuff. And then we met again, but and it was probably about the second time we met. She said, "Oh, can I check out your Instagram?" And I'd taken my personal Instagram down at that point, so I didn't have an Instagram to give to her, and it's a problem, because they're going to, even if and she was already bought into me. She liked me, we got on well, there was clearly a vibe there, but not having an Instagram to give for women in that demographic, it becomes. Maybe not a red flag is quite a strong way of putting it, but it certainly puts a question mark over you, because it's a bit like, well, so why hasn't he? And then in my case, particularly because this woman was in her 20s and I'm somewhat older than that, she starts thinking, well, is this guy secretly married? Is that why he doesn't want to show the picture? You know, and you get all of that sort of thing coming into it. So, yeah, I think and one thing that Myron and Fresh have been very good at is their course, DMs on Demand, teaching about how to, you know, really enhance your Instagram. And I think that is a great skill set to have. I mean, I need to do this on my personal one. You know, I'm a bit behind on this at the moment, but the advice that they give in terms of choosing the pictures, you know, in terms of almost crowdsourcing it, getting it voted on anonymously on those sites that you can use, using filters and things like this, I think absolutely bang on, because, you know, like James says, you need to have that. You need to have that some degree of online, you know, acumen if you're gonna win through, right?
You got to be able to have some sort of presentation.
I think it's not. I mean, just to add one more thing, I don't think it's quite to the degree. I don't think you need to be standing in front of your Lambo and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's not. It's not to that extent. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to be in the Bulgari hotel with, you know, in the jacuzzi and stuff like that. It can be. It doesn't have to be wealth porn like that, but I think you've got to have some decent pictures and you've got to show you've got a bit of a life. I think that's the key thing. Right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've said this before, and I'm not trying to march this back or anything like that. I still believe this, is that I think that dating in general, like just like hooking up, whatever you want to call it, like social interactions and intersectional dynamics, has become, I think, overtly an effort in brand management right now. And that's when we look at Instagram, it's almost like a resume, right? It's like, are you cool enough for me to hang out with? Are you sitting on a wave runner in the middle of, you know, some beautiful beach with, you know, crystal waters or whatever? Are you on a yacht, right? Do you own a cool dog? You know, that kind of stuff. It's like the perceptual side of things. I think it's very seductive for women, because they say, oh, this is the kind of the lifestyle. It's that imagination, right? Remember what I've said, and this was from the very first book. I said the best tool in a guy's toolbox is a woman's imagination. If you can prompt imagination in a woman, you can pretty much work miracles, you know, to get with that chick, or whatever your goal ends up being. If you can engage imagination with women, then you're certainly at an advantage. And nothing does that better than the impression of social proof pre-selection, and even a low level of fame that comes from brand management of your pictures, and, you know, curating a collection or archive or a museum of your coolest shots. Also, you know, run through Face App or, you know, whatever else, make you look that much better. But it's not about so much that's the perceptual side, right? It's almost like, it's like looking at the advertising, but then there's also the part where you actually have to do the interacting. Yeah. And so like when I see guys, and I'll throw this up here really quickly, just because this was a good question. He says, AQVX or whatever. I've never had game, and I'd like to improve. Looking forward to your book and the subsequent workshops. That's what I'm going to be doing pretty soon. Do you help MGTOW guys? I know you don't like. It's not that I don't like you guys. It's like, I honestly, here's my opinion of MGTOW. Okay, I know that there's a spectrum, but my opinion of MGTOW is this: MGTOW are just red pill guys. It's just their solution is something that I disagree with. I don't think that just abdicating from the whole game and everything else and saying, okay, you win, I'm out, I'm just going to go live in a you know, live like a hermit somewhere, or I'm just going to abdicate and leave the game. I think that's not the prescription I would be advising. This is but let's see, I'm personally a fan of Patreon. So like, do you guys actually, have you had guys from like sort of the MGTOW community come in and like seek out help from you guys? That's number one. Number two is Myron and Fresh always say this, is that it's a numbers game right now. Because of the perception of fame. I think it was Roosh back in 2013 or maybe 2012 even. He had this sort of prediction of what's going to happen within the next 10 years. And one of the things he said is fame plus game is going to be necessary if you want to even ever have any kind of success with women. And not like fame as in like you have to be a famous actor or a rock star or something like that, but you have to be like number one in whatever field that you happen to be in.
Yeah. Can I throw something? Can I throw something in just quickly before James comes to that? Because it occurred to me while you were talking that there's two sides to this. One side is basically social media, Instagram game. When you're a big enough fish on Instagram that you can leverage that and that becomes your whole game. And we know people who have 200,000 plus Instagram followers. They've got a blue tick next to their name. And for those guys, because I know some of them personally, they are getting girls hitting them up in the DMs. And if they DM a girl, she's very likely to come back to them. So Instagram becomes their whole game. And actually, probably people like Fresh and Fit, are getting near to that themselves. Certainly, I know Fresh has got a very big Instagram account. So that's one thing. But if you're not that guy, and obviously it takes quite a lot to get to that level on Instagram, then for guys on this other level, the other game that you play is you have a decent Instagram so that it can be there for the vetting, because like somebody said in the chat, the cold approach is the interview, and then the Instagram is the vetting. So you've got it there in the background, but it's not the main lever of your game. But what the main lever of your game is the cold approach, because I think a point that I'd like to make strongly, and I'm sure James is on board with this as well, is that we believe that cold approach, that is to say, actually going up and talking to a woman in real life, still in 2021 has huge power to it, right? And this is something that some of these the doomers disagree with, because they'll say, well, it's all about Tinder, and if your looks aren't great on Tinder, and that is replicated exactly in the real world. Because women have this standard of looks, and if you don't meet that standard, then you're screwed. So you may as well give up. Our contention is different. Our contention is no, actually, when you do a cold approach, that bumps up your perceived sexual market value by at least several points. Okay, so there's a huge advantage to being able to go and approach a woman in real life and just go up to her and talk to her in a social and engaging manner, and that's actually going to amplify your attraction in her eyes and give you a better chance with her than you would have if you were using Instagram or indeed Tinder.
Mm-hmm. James, do you think it's a numbers game? Do you think it's just like spam approaches and work as many angles as you possibly can? Because that's what I hear a lot from like Myron right now. And this is one of the things that they try to hit me up about. They're like, well, all that stuff that, you were writing about back in 2005, 2007, 2012, whatever. A lot of that still applies, but now the game has changed a little bit. And it's all about like, it's almost like dating is, like I said, it's brand management, but it's also almost like a sales funnel. Right. You have to just get, and spamming approaches is no longer just about like going and hitting up girls after girl after girl in the club. It's also having an intriguing online presence that women want to like I said, it's like a sales funnel. Do you agree with that now? Or is that something that's maybe ancillary to actually learning real social game?
So are they also approaching in the flesh per se, or are they just playing the numbers game online?
Myron was approaching a lot. He was going to clubs in Miami, and he would approach like 50 girls a night or something like that. I think he's scaled that down now because they're growing in terms of their social following, and I think he's finding other ways. But he certainly is somebody who's done a lot of cold approach. Yes,
they definitely have clout, quote unquote clout, right now. But I think, one of the things like Fresh always says is that it's like you have to maximize your number of opportunities, right? Like it's almost like he's using the sales funnel kind of niche market thing in terms of like sourcing women that might be like women he wants to sleep with, or what women he wants to engage with, that kind of stuff. Do you think that there's is it all about that, or is it more about not just that, but it also like social interactions too?
Value is also involved, because if you get a guy who's living in his mom's basement, who hasn't washed in a week, who dresses like crap, who doesn't have any money, he can spam approach 1,000 women. He's going to get a no every time, right? So value needs to play into it. Actually, I think John Matrix said this, but when you step up in front of the girl, value chips are exchanged. She can just see straight through you. You've got to have like that life experience there, and she can just tell a lot from just looking at what you're about. But yeah, it's a skill game, right? So you leverage up, you get more social and emotional intelligent, you get better at game, so your ratios get better, but you need to be playing a numbers game. All the guys that I know that get laid like rock stars, they play numbers to a high degree. Me and John are always trying to, from my position, I was coming at this I was working in the city. I didn't want to be a weird pickup guy charging around the street for 10 hours a day. So what I arrived at through trial and error was this idea that 30 approaches a week is kind of the minimum you need to be doing for day game, to be hitting the numbers part of it, understanding the cold approach. you're going to get a lot of no's. The woman just doesn't like you. You know, she's in a bad mood. Her dog just died. She's married. She's got a boyfriend. And also interacting with enough hot women to actually practice your flirting skills, practice banter, get more intelligent speaking to hot women. So there's the numbers game and the skill part, but it doesn't have to be crazy, crazy numbers. I stand by the fact that if guys get what they're doing, and I've verified this with guys around the world, 30 approaches per week should generate you 2 new dates a week with hot girls if you're doing cold approaching right.
Are you guys still friends with Tom Terrero?
This gets asked every single time somebody asks about Tom Terrero.
I talked to Tom. Gosh, the last time I actually have talked to him on the phone. I talked to him probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. But I know he's still around. I know he's still doing his thing. But you talked to him recently, haven't you?
I saw him today. So I can reveal I can reveal exclusively that he is still alive. Well, he certainly was several hours ago when I saw him. So I've seen. Yeah, he's around. He's doing his own thing. He stepped back from the, doing the content and stuff at the moment. But yeah, he's good. He's good.
Oh, good. Yeah, tell him I said hi.
I will do. Yeah, I will do.
He's referenced me on a few occasions as well.
Yeah.
So getting back to the numbers game side of things, I think that there is a definite deficit. I think in like James was saying, the social interactions. But if you don't have if you can source women, that's one thing. It's another thing to see them live in person and actually have some sort of communication skills once you get to that point. Again, do you guys think that these guys are what do you let me just put it in these terms. What do you have to say to guys who think that like the only reason you guys are in business right now is because you're trying to sort of take advantage of these guys who are I guess social retards, right? And again, clinically speaking, social retards, like they're trying, they're at a disadvantage and you're at an advantage. And so therefore you're taking advantage of them as a result of this, and that you're selling like sweet sunshine or snake oil to these guys.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I get asked every time I have Troy on here or I have John. I get this constantly. It's like, what do you have to say for yourself, Mister?
Yeah. It's viable because we work in an unregulated industry, and there's a lot of charlatans, a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. I guess the way you've got to do it is try and research people. Myself and Troy put out a lot of kind of content and have done for a long time, which kind of shows not only the successes but also the failures, because that's actually the reality of this game. You get rejected a lot. So I think people try and resonate with you on that level. But just to be clear, I mean, the majority of the guys we work with, they're not really social retards. They're not kind of like these kind of gremlins dwelling in basements. They're normal men. They're living high value lives. They're probably working in the city or something. They're in shape. They dress well. They've got money. And they see cold approach, day game, integrating that into their lifestyle as a very effective way to meet women, because they don't want to go out to clubs till 4 a.m. with a hangover the next day. They've got stuff to do. And they don't want to use online dating because it sucks balls unless you're in that top 1%. So these are guys that see us on charging around, like speaking to girls in coffee shops or getting on a plane to Russia or Brazil or whatever it is. And they want that skill set. So the majority of men we work with are pretty high value guys. They're not this kind of quote unquote like weird pick-uppy guy hiding in a lair, that kind of cheesy 90s like geeky guy, that Neil Strauss era guy. They're not that. They're normal men. They're high value men.
What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're certainly not. I mean, it's certainly the crowd around the people that come to us for this kind of advice. They're certainly in a very different category from from the stereotype that you might think. But another point to make is that I saw somebody did a video that was criticizing, dating coaches, and they were particularly criticizing people who make the claims. You get the YouTube ads and they say, oh, there's these 6 secret tricks that you need to know to get into her heart and all of that stuff, right? Which is not what we do anyway. But, you do see that kind of content, and they kind of tend to lump all of the dating coaches into the same pool. And I saw somebody saying, well, that the business model for the ideal business model, the ideal client for the dating coach is one who it doesn't work for, because then he's got a repeat customer. And this guy's argument was to say, so these guys actually want to appeal to hopeless cases, and they want them to fail, because when they fail, they just upsell them to another course. and they rinse and repeat. So you've got return business. But that is a ridiculous idea when you come to think about it, because of course what any business needs in order to survive is to show success. Because if you have a business that doesn't show any success, then you're not going to get any word of mouth and you're not going to get any referrals, right? And if you look at James, I mean, James has got so many testimonials from people who have trained with him and have had fantastic results. I've got many, many testimonials. I've got loads and loads of reviews on Amazon. I've got reviews for my books. Do you know what I mean? So the idea that a business could work targeting people who are going, and not taking them where they want to go is ridiculous when you think about it, because the negative feedback from that would be such that it would just be unsustainable.
Okay. All right. So that's question number one now. So that's usually like, oh, you guys are snake oil salesmen. I hear that constantly from one side of the sphere. The other side of this is that I get this question a lot, and sometimes it's from guys who are just simple haters. And then there's usually this question or this sort of accusation, I guess, comes more from sort of the traditional conservative side of things, right? The only reason you guys are doing this is because you're seeking validation. Like you go out there because you want to build your egos up, because your notch count is everything, right? That's how you measure your dick. That's how you measure your ego. That's how you feel better about yourself. And you guys are just out there doing all this because the more chicks you get, then the better you feel about yourself. And it's really some deep rooted, vulnerability, with some psychological disorder that you guys have that forces you to go out there because you want to look better to other men. Right. Like I get that all the time. It's like, you only want a hot girl because you want other guys to think you're important and you're cool. Like, no, I want a hot girl because I want a good piece of ass. That's what I want. I actually want to have that experience. But I don't agree with this. But do you guys what do you have to say to guys who will say, well, you shouldn't measure your self-worth by your notch count?
Well, I would broadly agree with that. I don't think you should measure your validation through your notch count at all, which is why we're not in the business of saying, well, I've 1,300 lays or whatever it is, there are people who do that.
I have 1,300 lays.
Yes,
my value is 1,300 today.
Yeah, there are people who do that, but that's not what we're in the business of doing. And no, I agree. You shouldn't seek validation through the number of people you slept with, the number of women you slept with, because that's just an illusory measure of success, and it doesn't really make you happy, right? But I think, there's so many strands to this question. People's objectives and goals change over time. So when I was, in my late 20s and I was first coming into this, there was definitely an aspect of wanting to go out there and just enjoy, as much fun as I possibly could for as long as I possibly could. Is that still my objective now? To be honest, not really. No. So I think.
Let me ask you this. I don't think I've ever asked any of you guys this. Do you guys run into guys who want to learn game because they're trying to find sort of a long-term relationship?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A girl of their dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably more guys than not, actually, because you would think that there will be all these guys and they want to live the sort of some kind of player lifestyle and be degenerates and jet off around the world and stuff. But for the most part, I think guys, they may want to have a bit of fun, but I think many of them generally, they just want to find some nice girl and kind of settle down in the end. And obviously it's our job to help them to get to that place, right? We're not in the business of dictating to anybody what the end game should be, because it's up to them. Yeah.
James, Mr. Tusk, can you find validation in your notch? What is your notch count anyways?
Before I got into game, I'd slept with about 60 women, but most of them looked like manatees, and it was big game hunting all the way. So that was when I decided, actually, I probably need to start learning game. I'll complete transparency. The first 2 years of doing this stuff was absolutely about validating my ego. I'd never really slept with hot girls. I needed to prove it to myself. And I slept with some very, very good-looking women, and I had to go through that phase. And I'd actually argue that most guys getting into this, if you want to get good at game and then kind of cash your chips out later via marriage or just kind of more emotional connection and less charging around, I do feel you kind of need to go through that crazy, sex in crazy places, meaningless stuff, fucking shit up, being a bit kind of dark triad. I think you actually do. because you see a lot of these frustrated men in marriages, and they're just like, they're trying to give people shit, but really what they're doing is they're just jealous because they never had that phase. So I think you do need that. And I think your priorities naturally change, and younger guys, yeah, absolutely, they'll come to us and that's what they want to they want to do. But older guys, a lot of them, they are just looking for kind of that emotional connection with one or two women, maybe some non-exclusive, you call it plate spinning. The ideal scenario that we've seen in terms of a default happiness goal for a lot of men I work with tends to be seeing two girls non-exclusively, but you've got an emotional connection with them. And then it leaves like one slot free to either go out and have one night stands or just do some crazy shit or whatever. And that seems to be the overarching kind of keep people most happy most of the time method we've seen as a default goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got this from Diego here. Sure. I guess this is actually for both of you in case. Troy, do you think the debate about direct versus indirect game is more about what works for a particular guy? Or if I feel goofy just thinking about direct game, is that a sign that I should push through discomfort and try it more? Like, what's your opinion on direct versus indirect game? Either of you.
Overall, I prefer direct because I like to just go in and just own it and just say, look, I saw you, you're cute. I had to come over and say hi, whatever, however you're going to put it, but basically make it clear to her up front, I'm approaching you because I think you're attractive. And this is just what I do. I'm a guy who takes action. If I see something, I go for it that I want, and I go for it. And here I am. And you put your balls on the line to some extent. Now, that's not to say you simp for her. You can then pull it back. You can make a little bit of a joke. You can do some teasing and so on and so forth. But I like to be direct. I also think it saves time and it kind of cuts the BS out of the way. I don't think it's so much dependent on the kind of guy you are, but I think it's somewhat situationally dependent though, because there are certain situations where being a bit more indirect is more appropriate, or it just works better. For example, if you're sitting next to her on the plane and you guys have got a 7-hour flight, you probably don't want to go direct in the first 5 minutes, because if it doesn't go well, it's going to be a bit awkward for the rest of that flight. So there are certain instances where indirect is a good idea, but I think everyone should try direct, because I just think it's the most honest, authentic, and open way of doing it.
James Tusk, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a process actually of needing to man up and put your balls on the line, as Troy says, for the first few hundred times, just to prove to yourself you can be direct. Because as men, especially men that we tend to work with I work with more Americans, Australians now, who tend to be a bit more blasé and confident, but growing up in the UK, people are very reserved. Same with Germans, very stiff, very awkward. We're not used to saying what we really think, right? So for most English guys that we taught at the beginning, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to give her a compliment and stand there and own it. It's like, yeah, you need to go through that process. And as Troy says, it's about, again, emotional and social intelligence and understanding when to say that right line at the right time, and just that you build that into your repertoire. I think that, I've always kind of preferred direct, but now what I do is I kind of walk up to a girl and I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, you're hot. I'd be like, hey, I hate to use Tinder. I had to say hello, bang. And you're just projecting that quite kind of inner core confidence. I guess the industry calls it indirect direct, but the girl knows exactly what you want. You're not going up and asking for directions, right? You're putting it on the line. You're just not necessarily saying, oh, you're sexy or you're beautiful, you're hot. It's kind of like just indirect direct. Your intention is communicating exactly what you think.
Yeah. I think that's important. In a sense, whatever you say, it doesn't really matter. But the key thing is that it's conveyed that you're hitting on her, basically. She's got to understand that on some sort of instinctual level, because otherwise you're just, this is the problem with doing things like going up and asking for directions and then trying to transition it into an approach afterwards. It's very awkward. It's very clunky. You want to walk up but whether you say, I think you're beautiful, I think you're cute, I think you're hot, or you don't, you want to convey that that's what you're about. Right. She needs to be under no doubt that, even if it's just the eye contact, she needs to know what you're about.
All right. I knew this was going to come up, so I'm going to throw these out there. Sharifa says the authentic is always the best. Okay. Authenticity is sort of a subjective term, like it's relative. So we'll get to that here in just a second. But the next one is really great.
I knew someone was going to say that.
I knew someone was going to as well. And then
also just walk up to people and say, I want to bang you. It doesn't.
Right.
If you're Leonardo DiCaprio, you can, right? But if you're a normal dude, you can't. You're going to get arrested. We live in sensitive times.
Yeah, and then Black Noir says this, and I was just about to bring this up, by the way, is Alan Roger
That's what I
Curry's
mean, yeah.
book is Mode 1. And for just for the record here, like Alan and I are still really cool. Like I love the pictures of his babies. His kid looks just like him. It's like a mini me version of him. But yeah, we're like Alan and I have always been cool. In fact, I got him, maybe regrettably, I got him on the I think it was the first or the second 21 convention. But and so now he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, and we're still cool, just so everybody knows. But anyways, Alan Roger Curry is the author of Mode 1 and some other books as well. And he and I don't think we've locked horns, but we've certainly had our debates and our discussions about what is preferable. Is it like overtly direct game, like, hey, are you DTF, right? Yeah, are you I think you're hot, are you down to fuck, let's go, kind of thing. Is that more of, and maybe that's a little overly blunt, but do you think that it is more about that degree of directness versus, like, it seems to me like that's sort of like there's two binary extremes here. The one is like, hey, are you DTF, that's it, right? Or else you're playing games, right? Because otherwise you're wasting your time. You're a dancing monkey, right? You're validating women by playing their game and learning how to speak their language rather than being a real man and staying in your frame and staying in the way, speaking the way a man should speak, which is direct. You'll say what you mean and mean what you say, kind of thing. It seems like though there's got to be some kind of like balance between the two of those, at least as far as I'm concerned. But it seems like because we live in sort of this binary extreme, everything has to be like black or white, or has to be on or off, or what, hot or cold. It seems to me like a lot of people who think that if you're not direct, if you're not like Alan Roger Curry, Mode 1 direct, then you're just playing games, you're dancing monkey, and you're validating women by actually learning game at all.
Yeah, I just don't think that's a very good argument, personally. It's not something I buy into, because it's sort of like, I mean, you can say that, yes, you're simping for women because you're trying to do things in a way that they're going to appreciate, and they're going to reward you with sex or intimacy as a result of that. You could make that argument, but like at the end of the day, we're all only on this planet once. We all want to enjoy our lives. We all want to have great romantic sexual experiences. We all want to enjoy adventure and stuff like that. And if you want something, you've got the best way to go about achieving it is to work out the best means of doing it, right? So I don't really buy into the whole sort of, oh, you're playing into her frame kind of a thing. But in terms of authenticity and directness, I think subcommunication works very, very hard here. And what I mean by that is the eye contact, the way you look at her, the intonation, even things like your stance, your body language, all that stuff it does a lot of the heavy lifting. And actually what you say, it doesn't need to come down to this debate of, do I say, are you DTF, or do I say, oh, what a nice flowery dress you're wearing? It doesn't need to come down to this binary. You can go in with something relatively benign, like, oh, hi, I'm new to St. Petersburg, but the way that you're looking at, I wanted to say hello or whatever, right? But the way that you're looking at her, what's being subcommunicated is doing a lot of the work. And as long as that is direct, and you're giving over this sort of sexual energy and through the way that you're doing that I think is the key thing.
Mm-hmm. James, what do you think? Do you think it's simping to learn game? I mean, that's like the most binary way of thinking about this. Like, if you learn game and you're actually speaking her, like you're speaking in a way, or you're trying to play. People don't even like the term game, right? Because it sounds like you're manipulating. You're playing games, mister. There's something wrong with you for playing games. Do you think that there is a balance between like being overly direct and being too like sort of game playing simpy guy, like learning how to become more like, I guess, like a male feminist almost, right? Like you want to become more like a woman and identify more like a woman, and therefore you become a dancing monkey as a result.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place, right? If she's butt naked in your room, or you're at an orgy, you can be super direct, and that's fine. But there's something in there as well, which is just like, the reason I know this is slightly different, but the reason the prostitution industry doesn't make men happy, as we all know, is you're missing the two things. You're missing the chase, which is the seduction dance, right? That Robert Greene art of seduction, like game. Mm-hmm. The dance on both sides. Will it happen? Won't it happen? That's a very addictive feeling. That's what you actually get addicted to when you start doing game, in my opinion. And you're missing the emotional connection. right?
Yeah.
So if you're just going up to girls and saying, "Do you want to bang?" And you might as well just go get a boat off Cartagena, with 5 Venezuelans and a kilo of coke and just kick back and have some fun. I mean,
which doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We can go
The most
Cartagena
correct
after
route,
this.
yeah.
I've got our flights booked, but the point is, like, it should be fun. That chase should be fun. As men, we're meant to chase. We're meant to lead. It's supposed to be like, will I, won't I? It's supposed to be nuanced. It's flirty. It's fun. It's like you feel fucking in the moment, right? You're present. The emotions are up and down. And that's what being alive is, right? Not just walking out to people saying you want to bang, right? It's too one-dimensional.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, in The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene.
Here it is. I knew there was a plug coming. We need to get Rollo. I was going to say, the only person you don't know, seeing this entire industry, or maybe that you haven't done something with, is possibly Robert Greene. It'd be great to see you two go.
I would love to. Hey, let's go. Here's my name.
Sorry, I didn't want to bring a rival book onto the.
Nah, that's fine. No.
But
Greene is always welcome on this show.
Yeah, but what he argues in that book, The Art of Seduction, he does actually say quite early on, seduction is, in a sense, it's a feminine art, because what seduction essentially, and James actually even almost referenced this earlier, it's in the sense that we're trying to teach guys to get the same level of, let's say, red pill awareness as women have, because women have a very high intuition for this stuff, and many of us men need to learn it. The seductive arts, when you think about back to people like Casanova and the great, libertines in 17th century France and everything, a lot of it was basically taking things that women did, like coquetry, like playing hot and cold, that sort of thing, and just flipping it so that men were doing it. So now men were using these same tools back to women, if you like, and that was getting women hooked. And so, there in The Art of Seduction, there is this acknowledgement that yes, this was a feminine art that men sort of took over in order to, get their end away, to be crude about it. Now, yes, you could argue that, now that was then, this is now. You can argue the toss about that. You could say, well, Casanova was beta because he was, he was using essentially feminine wiles in order to seduce women, or whatever, right? You can make that argument, but it's a bit like, we did a show earlier in the week and we were talking about travel, and we were talking about how good it is to go and travel and meet women in different countries from different cultures, and people were saying, well, that's beta because you're cheating, because you're not, you should be in your own country and just meeting the women there. Right. And we were sort of saying, well, even if that were true, and I don't agree with that anyway, but even if that was true, what is the life advantage to be had from, being the internet alpha? Because if, say, seduction or game is a sort of a feminine wussy thing to do, well, okay, you can say that, and maybe that looks good in the comment section on YouTube. But ultimately, would you rather be having more sex, or would you rather be sitting at home and writing comments about being alpha on YouTube? Do you know what I mean? And I think most people, you've got to think, well, I kind of just want to enjoy my life. I want to go and meet some cool women and have some great experiences. So you've got to do what works, haven't you? Ultimately,
right? Yeah, you guys are all. You said you're going to Russia next. Is that where you're
tomorrow?
You're
yeah, off to Moscow.
Tomorrow? So you guys are around the world doing this kind of stuff. Like what country, like, let's just do a round table. What country is the best place to run a game?
It depends what you're looking for, because, if you're into, say, Southeast Asians and you want to bang 5 times a day, go to Thailand. If you're into blonde hair, blue eye girls, go to Helsinki, go to Riga, go to, Oslo. If you like me, Brazilian women, because they're so fun to be around. Obviously spend a lot of time in Brazil. It's just a nuance. I mean, we live in such a fortunate time where you can figure out the type of women you like looks wise, and there's no excuse not to get on a plane and go there and run game. So that's why I never kind of take this argument. Guys are like whinging about their circumstance. I'm like, do you have a job? Yeah. Okay. Do you have $500 in the bank? Yeah. Okay. Right. Get on a plane.
England,
there's no excuse. Yeah. England are 2-1 up.
England has just scored, so we're 2-1 up. We could be going through to the final here, Rollo. This is exciting.
There you go. I'm so glad you got. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. James Tusk having a cold one while we're doing this too.
It's a nice Scottish. I'm a big fan of single malt whiskey. It's called the Balvenie. It's a smoky, peaty whiskey.
I will have to send you guys a bottle of my Canadian whiskey.
You've got Canadian whiskey?
I have an ownership stake in a brand of vodka and a brand of whiskey.
That'd be amazing.
The brand of whiskey I have is actually a Canadian rye whiskey.
Nice.
I will have to send that to you at some point. Now, the reason I'm asking is because there's a lot of guys who will say, well, just go to Thailand, right? Or go to Southeast Asia or something like that. Or go to another country where things are going to be easier for you. Like, for instance, John from Modern Life Dating will say that, American women suck. And I don't want to ever go back to America because they're all fat and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would much rather be running game and sort of being in this country where I like the women here, which is in his case is Japan. A lot of guys will say, well, if you really want to play the game on easy mode, then you got to go to like the Philippines, right? or Guam, I don't know, Guam or wherever, Thailand, Vietnam. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that it's better? Is it playing game on easy mode in certain countries?
Well, again, we were actually sort of batting back this question earlier in the week because we were talking about, because James in particular travels, he's on the road pretty much the whole time. I've been less so. I hope to be more going into the later part of this year. But yeah, we had exactly this thing because guys were kind of saying, well, it's beta to travel in order to, just to get sex. You should man up and you should, be the best man you can be in your own environment, your own country or city or whatever, and play the game there. But I think there's a distinction to be made between, what is kind of sex tourism, which is to go somewhere where it's you're going there, but you're going there because it's very easy and it's well known to be very easy for your particular race or whatever, or your ethnicity, or and you're going there not because you necessarily like those women, but because it's very easy. Now, guys, obviously we're going to Russia tomorrow. I know Sterling's over in Ukraine. I think the Tates are in Ukraine. I mean,
you actually get together with Sterling and Justin while they're over there.
Well, I said to Sterling we're going to be in Russia. I don't know because we are going to be in Russia as opposed to Ukraine, but it would be awesome to meet up with those guys, definitely. No. But yeah, I mean, so people will go there because class, women from that part of the world are very, very beautiful. And, many, many top models, actually, they come from Brazil as well, but they also come from Russia or from Ukraine or, Siberia and, these kinds of places. And it's just to do with their bone structure, their cheek, but their genetics, they are well known to be some of the most beautiful women in the world. So guys will go there because of that. But it's not that it's particularly easy. It's not that you step off. Particularly to Moscow, because you go to Moscow, one of the richest, most expensive cities in the world. You've got the most billionaires there, I think, than any other city on the planet. And if you think you just step off the plane and it's somehow easy because you've got a British or American accent, then you're completely deluded. That's not the case at all. So I think there is a distinction to be drawn between the lower level sort of, I'm just going to go there because I know this is going to be a very easy thing to do, versus I'm going to go there because I want to experience some of the culture and I actually do genuinely like the women from that part of the world, and I'm going to go there. But I also appreciate that dating isn't necessarily going to be significantly easier than it is in my own home country.
Right. This is actually pretty good here. And so speaking from the Philippines, the women here are just as sharp. Your game and discretion have to be A+. And yeah, I was going to say that I think that
it's over then, guys.
Well, I mean, what do they say? If you can't get laid in the United States, you're probably going to be, you're going to still have difficulty in other, maybe it's a little bit easier, but you're still going to have a lot more difficulty because you just simply don't have those social skills, which is what we've been talking about for this whole time. But yeah, I mean, I've been to Europe, I've been to the Netherlands, I've been to Belgium, I've been to France, been to Germany, I've been to Panama, I've been to the Philippines. And of course, I'm not running game there, but I do know the women and I do know the cultures of in those areas. And they are all plugged into the global sexual marketplace. They all have cell phones. They all think they deserve Brad Pitt, right? They all think that they're all watching your Instagram in Western countries and in Thailand and in Vietnam and in the Philippines. They feel like they are sort of global citizens, and that like women in those instances feel like they deserve, still think that they deserve the high value guy. Now, my question for you guys is this, and I know that a lot of guys are probably going to want me to ask this, so I'm going to anyways. There's a lot of guys that I think who maybe they feel like they are, or maybe they really are, legitimately are, but they feel like they're at a disadvantage when it comes to game, particularly Asian guys and guys in India. like Indian guys and Asian guys, because they are short. They don't tend to have the classic features that that women tend to find attractive and arousing in the global sexual marketplace. One of the ways I became aware of the quote unquote black pill was because of a video of these guys who are Asian men who are, average right around 5'6" to 5'9", somewhere around there. And they will, and maybe rightly so, will say, we're at a complete disadvantage in this global sexual marketplace. Because our women, the Asian women, the Indian women, don't want to have anything to do with us. They want to get with either westernized white guy, or they want to get with a westernized black guy, and who is 6 feet tall, because women choose, select for height and everything else. So I've really struggled with this, because it's like, I would love to be able to help these guys and find out a way to like help the guys get to where they want to be as far as game and as far as their life is concerned. Are you guys encountering these dudes? Are you familiar with this subset of guys who are looking to learn game or looking to improve their lives, like from an intersexual dynamics perspective? Because I run into guys from India all the time who hit, like, because I happen to be on the West Coast of the United States here. I have guys that will hit me up and say, Rollo, I work in Silicon Valley. I'm a coder. I make 6 figures. I'm an Indian man. I came over here from India. I learned my stuff, and I'm here, and I'm working for Apple or whatever, Sun Microsystems, whatever. And I really want the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, big tit girl from the centerfolds. How do I get that girl? What can I tell these guys? Like, if I could create a form of game, those were the guys I would want to help, because they seem like they are ass out above all other guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% possible. There's a video series I did, a transformation thing I did with this Indian dude who's a student in London. He came over, and I worked with him for 3 months. It's literally got all on camera, his progression of him like approaching, taking numbers, going on dates, and killing it. And he basically it started off as loads of like Indian and Pakistani heritage guys got really angry in the chat, because they were like, this is not true, this is rubbish, blah blah blah. But then we started showing the date footage, which is kind of undeniable proof that he was actually hooking up with blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls, which is the fetish, right. the seeming general fetish, right? So it is possible. You just got to max out those areas. Again, you're going to get some women, right, in the UK, using Bav, the guy, as an example, who just immediately were like, no, I'm not interested, right? Race was a predication of like, that was their limiting factor, right? But a lot of women didn't care at all. Right, so it's again about self-belief. It's about trying to max out those social skills and all the other areas, and you can make stuff happen.
Yeah, I have had so many guys hit me up about that, and it's like I'm kind of at a loss, because like I think that is sort of their. If women in those countries are kind of part of the global sexual marketplace, I think guys are also in that global sexual marketplace. My other question is this: do you encounter guys who think that you should be able to give them the magic pill, right? Like guys who think that, well, I need to go from zero to hero, and I need these guys to tell me how to do it. And if I don't get it, if I don't have like the magical formula that gets me laid with the girl of my dreams, then these guys are selling, like snake oil. Are you running into guys who see this more as a, like, I guess, learning game and dating coach, whatever you want to call it? Do you see more guys that are looking for like extreme success, like right off the bat, or is it more like learning a skill, like learning a martial art? You go from like white belt to black belt.
I think because of the way we market it, which is that classic stiff British upper lip, showing a lot of the rejection, the doom and gloom. It manages expectations in advance, so people have a pretty realistic idea of that this is going to take hard work, because we're constantly banging on about that message in all the videos we put out, and showing the rejection, showing the failures as well as the successes. I think, again, Troy touched on it earlier, but it's when you get this kind of very quote unquote cheesy, cultish marketing of 3 tricks to get any girl into bed, when that is your message, whether it's through ads or whether it's through the content that you're spewing out, that creates false expectation and false hope. And then that backfires on you, because you've created stuff which isn't going to be achievable necessarily. Are
you guys fighting against those guys, like the guys who are like turn this front into like the grifters versus the guys who are like you guys who are really into like, I'm like, this is your career, like this is what you do?
I don't know that we necessarily are, because I think there's room enough for everybody. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of these beefs that you see online are pretty stupid, to be honest, because there's not really any need to beef with another person just because they happen to be in the same marketplace, because some people are going to resonate with me or James. Other people are going to resonate with, a different coach. It's very much a personal thing. And I mean, this is what content marketing is all about, isn't it? We put out content, most of it's for free. If people like it, then they can engage further. They can maybe buy a book, or they can come on a call, or they can go on a boot camp or something, right? And if they don't, then they don't have to, and that's it, really. And I think that people can see from the way that we put ourselves across that obviously we're trying to do things in a certain way. We're not doing flashy commercials or videos where we're saying, right, here's these 3 tricks, and if you just say these 3 things, it's all going to be amazing, because nobody can really give that silver bullet, right? Now, if other people are choosing to do that kind of marketing, that's fine, that's up to them, right? But I don't think that I don't believe that we're competing against those people, because I think the kind of people that we tend to attract will be people who are a bit more level-headed, and they recognize that we are being authentic, and they recognize that, like anything in life, you can't just pull a trigger and the silver bullet goes through and then it's all going to get solved, So I think that it's just a somewhat different market.
What do you have to say to guys who say, like, I hate to use the term receipts, right? Like when you're showing, like, I know I've seen James Tusk's receipts. Okay, I know the kind of like the chick on the. By the way, thank you for the photograph for today's thumbnail.
Yeah, it's like that some thumbnail he's used.
That was pretty good. Feeding the girl the banana was awesome. So I said I gotta use that. But I have seen the receipts. I know James is a real deal. However, I think that a lot of guys, and I want to get you guys' input on this. I think a lot of guys who are critics of dating coaches think that if you're not nailing 9s and 10s, then you guys are just you're snake oil, right? And I argue this. I say, well, if you are a guy and you are like, what were we saying, James, that like you were hitting girls who look like manatees before you learn game, right? And then later on, obviously, you're getting with much higher quality women, let's just say. But I've always said this is that, if you go from like getting with 4s and 5s and suddenly you're getting 6s and 7s, and maybe you're not getting 9s and 10s, but is that not an improvement? Do guys see improvement with you guys? Like, I mean, even if it's marginal, like going from a 5 to a 6 or a 5 to a 7 or something like that. And I'm throwing this out there loosely because we need a metric to measure things by. But do you see guys go from like 0 to hero? They go from like getting 5s all the way to getting like 9.5s, or do you see them sort of incrementally getting like better girls?
I think it depends on their value outside of the social skill stuff. Because again, emotional intelligence game, it can only take you so far. And if they're a tall, good-looking dude working in a really high-value job, they've got a very interesting life. They've got high levels of confidence, self-esteem. Absolutely, this guy can go from pretty average results to like literally like rock star level by learning game. But you need to have that inherent value there, because the game will only leverage you up so far. There's always those outliers, right? That broke like heroin guy who's somehow like picking up like smoking hot women in LA and staying in their houses. But that isn't the norm, right? You need to just max out these other areas. And typically the guys we work with, when they have all these other areas maxed out, it's like game is the cherry on the top, cold approach is the cherry on the top, and that's what leverages it, like opens the door. But they've built that value themselves over years, and it's so much easier to teach these kind of guys. If they don't have that value there is a glass ceiling on what you can do. In fact, not even a glass ceiling, a solid concrete ceiling.
A solid ceiling, yeah. Troy, do you see that too? Do you think that there's a ceiling that certain guys can only get to? Or like, do you think that it's just takes them longer to go from like I guess it kind of depends on their own value too. Like I think James is right about that. It's like there's a certain like if you're a 5 yourself and you haven't like upped your, if all you're doing is upping game and you're not upping other areas of your life, then perhaps you have to sort of, let's just say be realistic in your expectation.
Because you've got to keep these girls as well. Sorry to interrupt, Troy, before you go, but the whole industry, pickup industry, talks about getting the girl. All they're talking about really is like getting a phone number. But beyond that, the guys that actually talk about getting a girl, very rarely do they talk about keeping a girl. Sleeping with a hot girl, it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's a hell of a lot easier than keeping a girl, right? Keeping a really hot girl with options in her prime, She's jumping into your reality. You know, you've got to be really enjoying your own life, and you've got to be living a really interesting reality, because women just won't stick around. So there's nuances that just aren't touched on by the industry because it's not sexy. But keeping going is super important, like that bit of it.
Yeah, I think it is. I think there is well, let me put it another way. I think that there shouldn't be a glass ceiling, but I think there probably is for many guys. But like you said, and like James has said, it kind of comes down to your value outside of the game, right? I mean, I've had guys that I've coached, I've done one-on-one coaching with, and they've turned up and they're dressed like crap, you know, and they're not in good shape and they look scruffy and everything. And it's almost as if they come to you and they think that game is this magic wand, and it's almost as if they think, okay, so he's going to give me the tricks and then I'm going to learn the tricks, and then I don't, you know, all of this other stuff is an afterthought. You know, the fact that I'm wearing a shirt that's 3 times too big, and, you know, crappy old jeans and whatever, right? And you know, I work in a fast food joint and I hate it, and I'm smoking weed in the basement the whole time. You know, they think that's all an afterthought, because if I just learn, because they've seen marketing from some of these other people, right? And so they've got this idea ingrained in their head. Oh, I just need to learn the secrets, right? And then it's all gonna go my way. But the reality is, you know, the ceiling is created by your value. Okay, so and the more that you increase your value, then the higher that ceiling can be. Now, the doomers will say things like, well, we're not all going to become Leonardo DiCaprio or Cristiano Ronaldo, so why bother? You know, it's that kind of attitude. But I mean, I think our response to that would be, well, no, of course we can't, but you can always improve. And the higher that you can go, then the higher you're going to be able to get in terms of that glass ceiling.
Mm-hmm. I got 2 things here. This one I thought was pretty funny here. It's like wealth trumps looks, race, age, sexual satisfaction, etc. for women almost every time with it. Okay, yeah, if your definition of getting with women is a transactional one rather than a validational one.
Well, we were talking about this the other day again, and I mean, we've talked about this actually on Rule Zero, haven't we?
Money, right? You can just be a girl.
Well, it's like what's most important? Is it looks? Is it game? Is it looks? Is it status? And maybe there was something else. Maybe money was another one in there. And I think everybody, when we talked about this on the Rule Zero show, I think everybody said status was the most important. And I think money. I mean, yeah, money. It's great. It's important, but I think money really is a reflection of status, as far as I'm concerned. You know, unless you're attracting girls who are very overtly gold digger type girls, and they clearly are just there for the money or for the experiences. But I think for the most part, that's not really necessarily what's happening. I think they want to have a cool lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? I think they want to hang out with you because you're doing cool things. And if that's going to the yacht party in Dubai or something, you know, it's not so much they want you to give them money. It's not as overtly transactional as that, but it is. They want to be in that cool Instagrammable sort of thing. So if you have wealth or money and you've got access to that, then that's going to bump you up. But I think ultimately, I think status is the ultimate thing. This
is a really good one. Okay, now I feel almost offended at this. Can Fashan says, "Wait a minute, Rollo. These two damn near look like male models." Oh,
really? Which two?
Wait. What am I, tap liver? Of course, getting women would be easy for them. How would they respond to that objection? Well, James, would you like to take this one first?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, I guess, what black pillars think. It's all about looks that we see, you know, women see. We see women in terms of age, fertility cues, and women see exactly the same thing. I mean, I can verify as a good-looking guy who wasn't getting anywhere that this is definitely not true, right? There's all these other things involved: confidence, game, social status, emotional and social calibration, you know, all the sexual market value adds.
Why do you think you weren't getting the women you wanted to get before you learned game? Why do you think you were failing?
Yeah, just complete lack of understanding. I think lack of exposure to being around women as well, just being uncomfortable around them, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do, lower self-esteem levels probably. And just a lack of any knowledge, really. I just didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. Like, I didn't know I had to approach. I didn't know, like, confidence was an attraction trigger. And then the problem is when you start reading about game, right, it's all disjointed. So you take, like, the cube, and you finally find a girl who's really drunk and she just wants to hook up, and then you start running the cube, and you turn around halfway through and she's hooking up with another dude. So you get all this disjointed game material that actually makes it worse as well, right? All these old school kind of like magic bullets and all that stuff. But I don't know. I think it's just a lack of knowledge and no one tells you what to be doing, right? And women inherently know what's up and we don't. But I mean, I get they ask this a lot because I am a good looking guy and I recognize that, right? But I mean, to flip it another way, if I walked into a Victoria's Secret model show, right, looking like I do, am I really going to be hooking up with the girls? When you got people like The Weeknd there, singing, when you get Kanye West, just because I'm a good looking guy, am I going to be pulling those girls based on my looks? I mean, come on. It's all relative, right? I can bang, quote unquote, 5s or 6s because I'm an 8, right? Just on looks. But are these the women I want to be hooking up with? Absolutely not. They're the high value girls. You've got to have so much more than that. So it's all relative, absolutely. But I mean, it's just such a naive comment. I mean, he basically needs to read The Rational Male.
Yeah. Did girls like open you back in the day? Did they did you find it easier for them to like I think a lot of guys mistake the idea that if you're a good looking dude that women will just open you, or all you got to do is have a really attractive avatar photo in your Tinder profile or something like that. And women will it doesn't matter if you're a convicted felon, you're Jeremy Meeks, right? It doesn't matter if you're a convicted felon, right? Or a one-time murderer, you keep got manslaughter charges or something like that. It doesn't matter as long as you look good and girls will open you. Did you find that girls were opening you before you knew game?
I mean, they make it girls still do, right? You learn to read in the case of interest, and girls will, as a good looking guy, they are going to make it easier, right? They're going to make it even if they don't approach you, which is quite rare, they're going to give you prolonged eye contact. They're going to flip the hair. They're going to move close to you. They're going to maybe in a bar, come and sit near you. So they make it obvious, but no, I've been directly approached by women 3 times in my life. Actually full on, they've come up and hit on me. And it's been 3 women that, one of them, I thought I was going to get raped. She saw me from across the dance floor, short hair, classic, lesbian, aggressive cut, smoking a cigarette, aggressively staring at me, just charged over the dance floor, grabbed me by the neck and pushed me up against the wall and was like, "Kiss me, bitch." And I was like, "Fuck this." No.
That's a proper Me Too story, isn't it?
Yeah, I could be saying I got Me Too. Fuck.
You think it's all about looks, Troy?
Well, obviously for me it is, Rollo.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I think I think it's important to say, yes, looks are important, right? And there's a lot of straw. I don't think
anybody has ever said looks aren't important.
Well, they haven't, but there's a lot of straw manning that goes on in this space, and they will try. People on the other side of the argument will try to say, "Oh, these guys, they say looks don't matter. They think looks is not important because they're trying to sell their snake oil, and so it behooves them to claim that looks are unimportant." Absolute nonsense. Of course, looks are important, And to be honest, the fact that there's whole channels dedicated to this, it still blows my mind a little bit because surely we all kind of know that, right? I mean, they will say, "Well, what about all the Disney films that show the the nerdy, geeky character getting the princess at the end and stuff?" But the reality is, as soon as you step out into the real world, as soon as you go to high school or whatever, right, that the better looking guys are cleaning up. It's just that's how it is, right? So of course looks are important, which is why we say yes, you should absolutely looks max. Looks max up including soft looks maxing, sort your hair out, sort your skin out, that stuff, right up to if you could afford it and if it's necessary, even doing things like surgical stuff, if that's what you need to do. Absolutely, 100%. Do all of that. But equally, it's not just about that. And I think what James was describing before, Rollo, you have the line about there's nothing. Correct me here, but there's nothing more potent than a man who's aware of his sexual status.
Simultaneously threatening and yet still arousing because he understands his value to women.
So yeah, exactly. And when James was talking, it occurred to me that probably what he's describing in those early days, he didn't really understand his value, or at least he didn't leverage his value. And probably some women took advantage of him. But probably some women who are lower down the scale, sort of almost. They perhaps got him at a cheap rate because he wasn't aware of his value. Then when he becomes aware of his value and he demonstrates that value, his market price goes up, if that makes some sense. So the point is that that yes, of course looks are important. Yes, of course, It's like, so, status is important. Having a job's important. Not living in your mum's basement. It's all important, right? It's like what we said at the beginning. You've got to cover all these bases. But so too is game. So too is having some social acumen. Because if you haven't got that, we know guys who are rich, who are good looking, and they're not pulling a muscle because they don't have the other bit tied down. And that's the important thing.
Yeah. Amar here says this. He says, respect to the panel, any show on night game blocker friend? In West Coast, it's common to get leave her alone by a flat ass friend. Do you guys still do club game? Like, what's your favorite like venue to be running game? Is it like, are you guys still doing day game? Are you doing like street ad stops or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, any daytime situation for me, it's very much exploring the world as well. I get off a plane, I go to a city, and I just sort of, walk around, explore the city. There's a cute girl in the coffee shop. There's a cute girl at the landmark. There's a cute girl lying on the beach. It's like any scenario. But I used to do a lot of bar game. I mean, obviously the pandemic put a stop to that. But honestly, just exploring new places. Travel is very much linked in with day game being sociable, and that's why anyone that kind of wants to be able to travel and have that social freedom to meet people, they need to learn day game, right? Because it's just part of the fabric of traveling, unless you like being a miser on your own, not interacting with anyone else. Yeah. What about you, Troy? Are you still into clubs? Berghain?
Yeah. Berghein's a very classic, very seedy club in Berlin, by the way, that if people don't know. But I mean, I was all about night game for years. I mean, that was my whole thing because I love nightclubs and stuff anyway, and bars and things. And that was my whole stamping ground for a long time. And then I sort of discovered you could do daytime approach, and then that became predominant, as you sort of get a bit older and you're less interested in staying out all night and all the rest of it. And I think just that ability to go and be social with people in the daytime sober is just, so important, particularly if you want to travel and you want to live a more nomadic lifestyle, because how else are you going to do it, right? Well, Tinder, but as we know, Tinder is very much stacked against guys for the most part. So, yeah, I mean, I think, so the answer is I've done a bit of both. I still like to go to the odd club or bar here and there, but I think just having that daytime skill is really, really key because it opens you up to so many more possibilities.
Mm-hmm. All right. We're getting pretty close to time here, but I want to ask a couple other questions. Here's the next one I want to ask you is like, if you guys have, I don't know, do you have like groups of guys? Like, how do you work your system right now? Do you get like 2 or 3 guys to come in and you go into a club, or you go and are you like training people right now? Do you have like groups?
England's won, by the way, so we are through to the final, which is pretty historic, isn't it? Yeah. James.
Yeah, I mean, well, as I said before, basically, like when lockdown hit, last June, I went to Sweden, lived there for 3 months, running training, in-person training. So taking guys out, throwing them to every type of scenario, cute girl everywhere, really pushing them to the max, giving them feedback on their body language, their verbals, teaching them direct day game. And I've basically been doing that ever since, since the pandemic began in Mexico and Brazil. I recently came back to the UK, and then the journey continues in Russia. So, yeah, everything's live. We do online programs as well, where you can do it remotely, work with me on like Zoom calls and WhatsApp support, which is important, externalize accountability. So there's a combination to fit, any guy really, live training or that external remote coaching.
But we've done a couple of, so your boot camps, they normally run over 4 days, don't they? Because we've done a couple of
5 hours a day, all in field, giving you the theory as you go, because everyone can sit an exam on pickup, but it doesn't translate to getting any success, right? You have to get out there. It's experiential learning. It's engaging with other people, right?
What do you think they need to learn the most, like about like women's nature, or like what is the most common thing that guys have to sort of overcome when you're working with them?
Themselves. I think the limiting factor is your ability to approach, and a lot of guys just can't put the reps in because it's too much quote unquote rejection. I think you talked about it in the Rational Male where you said the buffers are off and like rejection is raw. And it's true. Like most men are not exposed to that amount of rejection, realizing that most women aren't into them. Like 98% of women, they might give a positive reaction to a compliment, but they're not into them. And equally good, but they've screened themselves out. And it's getting guys to approach enough, getting them to overcome that anxiety to approach. I think that's probably the biggest limiting factor, the initial one.
Wow. Yeah. There's also, I mean, it's individual case by case. I mean, there was also a guy that we trained in London just recently, and he was almost the opposite, which is unusual, but he really had the gift of the gab. and he was very, very good. He was very nervous at first, but we got him started, and he was doing approaches, and did a few approaches, and then the momentum built, and he was on fire, and he was a very, very funny, very confident, had quite a good way to convey the sort of, you know, his sexual desire, if you like, you know, and you could see these girls just melting when he talked to them. But in his instance, he needed to sort of tone things down a little bit. He needed to become a little bit less sort of full on and a bit more of a normal guy, because you also, I mean, Mystery obviously talks about comfort building, and he probably overstated it in Mystery Method, how much, the 7 hours and all the rest of it. But you need a bit of comfort, right? You can't come across as being just this complete player type character, because otherwise it's great when she first meets you, but then she goes home and she's like, wait a minute, this guy's just, you know, he's just after one thing, and that's not what I'm about. So so sometimes guys need it toning down a little bit. But the nerves and an inability to get started is probably the main thing, really. And sometimes it's somewhere in the middle where guys can be very sociable and they can get into conversations fine, but they don't finish it. You know, they don't go to get a phone number. They don't go for a close, you know, because they don't want to sort of mess up the good vibes that they've had through the rest of the interaction.
Yeah. All right. So last question is this: like, what if you're going to teach? If you got a new guy that you're teaching, what's the one thing about women's nature that you would say that guy absolutely has to know that he doesn't, that they likely don't know?
Women are very sexual, and that actually, if you approach enough, then you're going to meet women who are, you know, they're looking for cool experiences. They're looking for fun as well. You are going to meet those women out there. I mean, I think there's a sense, I think many guys can think women are almost like China dolls, and you know, they'll be terribly offended if I show interest or approach or do anything like that. And it's really, really not the case. You know, many women are walking around, they're actually living quite boring lives. You know, and if somebody comes up and they're well calibrated and they, you know, they're going to feel flattered, they're going to feel, you know, that it's going to be exciting for them. It's going to be cool for them that this guy's approached and, you know, has made something happy in her otherwise sort of kind of humdrum day. So I think, yeah, there's a lot more opportunity out there than you think.
Do you think they don't approach, like, guys, do you think women appreciate an approach now more than they used to because everybody's all about online stuff now?
Yeah, I do. And there's also a quote I want to bring up here, which is a brilliant one from an old school French philosopher, where he basically said, if men knew all that women think, they'd be 20 times more audacious. So I think one of the biggest things you can apply as a guy is that concept of fake it till you make it. And that raw bull, which links in with this direct approach in the daytime, that raw ballsiness, that confidence, that just like, I'm just going to put it on the line. The SAS motto, the British Special Forces, he who dares wins. That takes you so far without actually really understanding any of this stuff. Just going for it, just being super confident. We're not talking about mode one, but we're just talking about a really genuinely confident guy. He just goes after what he wants unashamedly and just puts it on the line. He wants her, but he doesn't need her. And when women kind of see that trait in guys, they respond to that like kryptonite. So, you know, you can shortcut a lot of this kind of learning game process by just kind of almost, you know, being bold, entering action. It's law 28, isn't it? Entering action with boldness, you know, above anything else.
And you know, as much as all these doomers go on about, you know, like the hype pill and all this kind of stuff. I mean, this particular guy who was on our event a month or so ago was actually pretty. You know, he was about 5'8", 5'7", 5'8". I mean, not particularly tall. Decent looking, but not particularly tall. And the effect that he was having on these very attractive women was really remarkable. I mean, I was standing there going, God, I'm feeling jealous of this. Do you know what I mean? This guy's really, really doing it in these interactions. So, and it was exactly down to, you know, his boldness, his ability to just go up there and own it. So it's amazing what can be done. And, you know, this is why a lot of the doomer stuff that we hear, it's very hard for us to really fully understand it, because when you see the other side of this, when you see what actually happens in the real world, you realize that there's a very different story being played out. Yeah,
I think I'm looking at this here. There's definitely a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and sometimes I think that even coming across as arrogant is better than not coming across as anything at all, right? It's just like as being sort of nondescript and women are indifferent to you. I think one of the things I would say is, like, I think that a lot of guys don't realize that they need to leave women with an emotional impression. they need to, if even if they have a negative reaction to them, that's still an impression, right? That's still something like, you're still playing the game with them. I think that's one of the things that James was talking about here too, is like, you got to enjoy it, right? I mean, why else would you want to go out and do game? If it's all just about like direct approach, why not just simply just go pay for a hooker, right? Why, or go get hookers and blow in Brazil on some yacht or something like that. If that's the ultimate end, in fact, if you just want to get off, then why not just go jerk off to porn, right? So there has to be sort of an enjoyment level of like you wanting to play that's why they call it a game, right? I mean, that's why you want to be in it and enjoying it. And I think that's part of it right there, because it also, if it's not enjoyable, then why are you wasting your time with it? Like, if you just want to buy a chick, just go buy a chick. Yeah. One of the things that I run into, and I'll just leave you guys with this, is that like I've been dealing with not so much like younger guys, but I mean, I get guys that will ask me like, what's the best book to learn game? That's one of the reasons why I'm writing this book on game. Again, it's not a how-to, it's a why it works book rather than how-to book. One of the things that I run into is with guys who are older, richer guys who sort of cashed out their chips a little too early, or they didn't learn game, or they didn't have a chance to sort of enjoy themselves when they were in their 20s or their 30s, either due to a lack of game or being blue pill conditioned or whatever. And then they cashed in their chips and they made a lot of money. They made a lot of themselves and everything. And then they get to a point in their lives where they become like 50, 60, 70 years old. And they get into a situation where the wife doesn't want to deal with them anymore, or their wife's got into like menopause or whatever, and they're not getting laid, and they're going, damn it, if I'd have played my cards differently, if I'd have done my life that could have been, right? If I had learned this stuff sooner, then I could have enjoyed myself with a lot of beautiful women, and I could have been in a better position later on in life as a result of having learned game, of having learned to become red pill aware. And I think that there is actually I hate to say it, there's a market for guys who are between the ages of say like 45 and 65 years old right now, who are still trying to sort of, recover from being zeroed out. And I mean that in the terms of like being married and then being zeroed out. And there is not only is there obviously a market for guys who want to learn game who are younger that you guys are sort of catering to, but there's also guys who, like I said, are newly divorced or trying to reinsert themselves back into the sexual marketplace. And they just simply don't understand it because they never got that education when they should have. Like when they were like, they could be like Generation X, they can be even boomers, they can be even like, late blooming millennials, I guess too, that never got that chance to really, get into the sexual marketplace armed with the knowledge of game, red pill awareness, intersectional dynamics, whatever you want to call it. And I think that going forward, there's going to be like, people were telling me yesterday when I was watching the Fresh Fit podcast, Myron Fresh on Timcast, and they're going, the red pill is going to be mainstream. It's mainstream now. And it's like, yeah, it is. It's kind of leaning that way. And I have mixed feelings about that. But the other thing is that it's appealing to more of a mass audience right now. And I think that that's part of it, because you guys are sort of hitting it from one angle where it's like, this younger generation kind of guys who are like, the Instagram generation. And then there's the guys who are, like I said, 40, 50, 60 years old, who are coming back into this, who want to learn game and sort of like get a second shot at things. And I think that that's also a very positive change that's happening. And maybe that's going to change things in the future. Who knows? But anyways, okay, guys, this has been really fun. Go ahead and give me your plugs. Let me know what you guys are doing. I have to get you two guys. Okay, so here's my invitation for you right now. I got to get you two guys, and I got to get Sterling, and I got to get Justin on this show so that we can all sort of have this kind of roundtable discussion once again too. So I'm putting that out there. In the future, we will run that panel at some time in the future. But go ahead and get your plugs, man.
Well, James, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
in terms of where they can find you.
I mean, if you want to get in touch, just send me an email info@jamestusk.com. We can hop on a call, have a chat about your situation, figure out what you need to fix. And if you want just shit tons of free content, just head over on YouTube, just type in James Tusk, and there's hundreds and hundreds of videos of me demoing this stuff in action, and also taking out students and showing them how it's done. So yeah, enjoy. And it's been a pleasure, Rollo, having me on.
Yeah. And
finally, it's good to meet you.
Dante, yeah, you too. Dante, yes, we will. I'll definitely have James on Rule Zero in the future as well. We'll put Oops, my bad. Go ahead, Troy.
So for me, just follow me on YouTube. So type in Troy Francis. You'll find my YouTube channel. Subscribe there. Give me a like. If you look in the comments underneath the last video, you'll see links to my books. So I've got a bunch of books about dating, game, the sexual marketplace, actionable advice and stories, and lots of goodies in there called Renegade Dating Blueprint. It's just $39, so you can grab that from the link. I've also got a couple of audio books out now, narrated by Jack Napier, which is called Approach to Date Toolkit. It's got 2 books in there, including a book called Approach Her Like Chad and another one called Text Game Mastery. You can get those audiobooks as well. The links on the videos in my YouTube. The other thing to say is we will be in Russia. So we're going to be in Moscow tomorrow, and then be in Moscow for a few days. Then we're likely going to be over in St. Petersburg because it's more open in St. Petersburg at the moment. So if guys are around and you're in Russia, or you can come over to Russia, and certainly St. Petersburg, very, very open, lots of fun going on over there, and you wanted to do some training with us, then please get in touch, and we'd be more than happy to help out.
Excellent. And I am going to be, 2 things I'm going to be. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Richard Cooper's channel, we're going to be doing Red Pill and Red Pill Economics, and it will be myself, George Gammon. I'm hoping Ken McElroy is going to make it. I'm not sure. Aaron Clary and Rich, of course, will be on there. So that will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Richard Cooper's Entrepreneurs and Cars channel. So that's coming up. I'm actually looking forward to that because I think that's going to be this is a crossover with game. Now we're going to go Red Pill. We're going to cross over into the economics side of things. Again, I will have a recorded show on Sunday, so you can watch for that. And the reason for that is I will be in Hartford, Connecticut, and I am going to be doing a cameo appearance in a video series that is being pitched at Netflix, I believe. So, and I'm not starring in it. I'm not changing careers or anything like that. They just wanted to be in it, so I was flattered. So, and they're flying me out first class. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. All right, guys, this has been fun, and definitely, James, I'm going to have you on. We'll have you on Rule Zero. We'll get you as a panelist at some point when we can fit you in. So
nice one.
That said, thanks for watching, guys, and this has been really fun. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.